Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another wonderful evening of guest speakers. And this evening, we have my friend, Amy Feind Reeves, coming on. She's running a tad late. She's a tad late. So you're stuck with me for a moment or two. So let me say hello to everybody. And here she is. As I just say her name, she pops on. So let me get her in the screen and we will say hello to everybody that's here. So here we go. There you are. Whoops.
I
Oh,
like to make a dramatic entrance,
I,
Elias.
and you did. You did make a dramatic entrance, and I love it. I love it. Let's fix our background here because it drives me crazy when I have that background. There we go. All right, let's say hello to everybody that's here. We have Michelle, my belle, in here. Cindy's here. Dale is here.
Hi,
Hello, Dale.
Dale.
Um, Jacob, hello. Lori, hello. Can you see me? I can't see you, but I can see your note. Ellen, hello. Priscilla, hello. And Maria, hello. Cindy, hello. And Susan, hello. And everybody else that is watching, hello, hello, hello. Thanks for being here, everybody. So, what has it been? It's been about, I would say, over a year now.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, over a year. And we met, we did some work together. We're continue to do work together. And I have to tell you that there isn't anybody that I would trust with this topic than you. I think you are just an amazing person. Um, and you are an author of this book, College to Career Explain: Tools, Skills, and Confidence for Your Job Search. Now, what I love about this book is that you break things down so easily, really truly easily, and this is available on Amazon. And I'm going to pick my page here that I had from earlier, and I want to just here's some tools, guys, about things that you need to know. And I think it's really important to understand interviewing tips. People are always saying, you seem so confident, Elias. How do you do in interviews? I like them because, I was in management and I enjoy them. But did you ever think that, don't cross your arms over your chest or close yourself off in any way? And keep your hands above. I never knew this. Keep your hands above the table and don't be afraid to gesture with them if that feels natural. Now, being Greek, I will talk a lot with my hands, and it's important. Um, and we'll put your website up there as well, www.jobcoachamy.com. Thanks, Priscilla. And Delora, thank you. The book is College to Career Explained by Amy Feind Reeves. Thank you very much. Hello, Russell. Hello, Chris. Hey, Michelle. Hey, Sarah. Good to see all of you. Um, there are so many good tips in here. Like, send thank you notes as mentioned previously, but don't wait until after the interview to show your enthusiasm. The interview's minds will be made up before they leave the room. And some people think they need to be so cool, calm, and yes, hello, thank you very much. Or they keep on talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. And what you say in the book is to keep it short and precise. So, um, anyway, so Jamie, who should be on here. Are you on here? No, she's not on here. Um, I was going to use her as an example, but we can use that later when she pops on. Um, I find tools in here that are not just for college people; they're for everybody. They're absolutely for everybody. So um, tonight we're going to talk about how do you find a career that's fulfilling? How do you find a career that gets you motivated, that gets you excited about? Maybe I don't even know. I mean, John's kids are a junior. Well, they'll be a junior and a senior, and we're like, "What do you take in college? What do you do in college? What What major do you go to what job do you want? Well, I don't know what job I want. Well, this is a great time to start interviewing the kind of jobs that you might be interested in getting and seeing how that works. So I showed in the book so they can look at it as well. So it's great. It's great. So what do you do? What do you do for people that want to change their career or shift a career or better yet, let's go from the beginning. How did you get started in all this?
Sure. So, if I can say a couple things first, I'd
Yeah,
love to hear
please.
people's comments. Whether you, if you want to put in comments what you're interested in hearing from me tonight, I'd be happy to speak to it directly. I'd love to, say the things that are most people are most interested in. So, if you have an objective, if there's a reason why you tuned in tonight, I'd be more than happy to address it directly. Secondly, yes, thank you, Elias, for pointing out that the book is a bit of a misnomer. I do love working with college students, but I have found that what I put together in terms of a methodology does work for a lot of different career stages. And there's a lot of tips in there. In fact, I am going to be publishing a lot of the book. I think 80% of the book is going to be repurposed for career transitions and also for higher level management careers and senior management careers. So, um, my story, while I'm waiting for people to tell me a little bit about what they may be generally interested in, is I've had two major career transitions in my life. One of them was getting out of college, which is why I really love working with people getting out of college because I really think that nobody does a really good job of explaining what opportunities there are. I think professors in college do a great job of teaching you critical analytical skills, which is something you need in college, but I don't think they do as good a job of explaining why. They teach you good hard skills, which are, could be coding, could be accounting, could be bookkeeping, could be a lot of things that are related to specific careers, but they aren't necessarily teaching you why you would take something like English lit and why being able to analyze a book translates into being able to analyze the opportunities that exist for a business. And personally, I was completely lost when I got out of a very good college with a very good degree, and I thought I had done everything right. I didn't have any connections, and I felt completely at a loss. And I have always wanted to be the resource that I wish that I had had because I really worked at figuring it out. And I really worked at, I had spent a lot of money to get a degree from a really good school. And I had worked really hard to get a really good GPA. And I thought I had done everything right. And here I did arrive at a point where I sort of had no idea what to do. So I always wanted to be that resource. And my experience was that I had to figure it out for myself
Mhm.
because understanding what you actually did in a job, understanding how to get a job, understanding what you did in that job was all stuff that I had to learn. There was nobody who was going to tell me. And today, still, the people who do the kind of work that I do are either people in the field of human resources or the field, and maybe some of you are in this field, and people in the field of recruiting, and that's all great. And that's give very good advice, but I actually played the role of a hiring manager. So I made the P&L decisions. I was actually the one who made the ultimate decisions on whether or not we hired somebody. So being able to cut out all of the screening and all of the kind of smoke and explain why it is we make the decisions that we make is what I lay out in this book. So what the people on the other side of the table from you are actually thinking and what the people who are actually reading your resume before it gets sent into the ether, or whether we make the decision to give you a call back or send you an email and say, we'd really like to talk to you. What are the decisions that go into that process? So that's what a lot of my book is about. And I love doing that, but I also really love talking about to people about how do they get to the point where they kind of have the Sunday night scaries and go to, I really don't feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I really don't like what I'm doing. I really would like to do something that makes me feel better about myself, about how I'm deploying what I have to give to the world, about what, how people are treating me, about what my skills are and what I have to give to the world, and take that into a plan. because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. And a lot of what I provide are just frameworks for thinking about that. So I'd love to hear where people are in their journey on becoming fulfilled in that aspect. And I will say again, I work with Elias, and he's an absolutely genius facilitator of the kind of frameworks to help us feel fulfilled in many of those areas. And I like to think that in a little tiny segment of our lives, I can help people in the career field. So if anybody feels like they are interested in moving forward or kind of feel stuck in an area that they don't feel like work, which is where we all spend a significant amount of time, and would like to move forward into an area where they feel like they're getting more of, I'd love to be helpful and be able to lay out a framework or talk about specific instances where you can develop skills or leverage a network or get more involved in constructing a framework for yourself. So if anybody has any specific instances on where they are with that journey, I'd really be interested in talking. And I see there's some new comments. Let me
Yeah. Let's go back to Serena says here, I love helping people find jobs. I worry if that were my day job. Excuse me. I might not enjoy it as much, so I stay in my current career. Okay, got
Okay.
that.
Um, well, I think you a couple of things. I think you never. It's kind of a flag to say that you not to kind of stay in a position out of fear base. So I think it's worth exploring for you. I think it's worth saying that it is fun to find. I also find it really fun to help people find jobs. That's why I do what I do. I think it would be really interesting for you to think about what skill it is that you're leaning into to help people find jobs and kind of categorize it. So, are you what are you going on LinkedIn to help people find jobs, and what are you learning from them? So, what's your kind of methodology for helping people find jobs? Are you if what are the top three questions that you ask to help them find jobs? What are you then doing with that information? And then how are you connecting them? So if you were to put together a methodology for something that you think was fun, and then if you were to, create a framework for how you do that specifically, and then if you were to look into potentially developing a career in that, you might be able to look into the potential of changing into a career for that. And I will tell you that it's a very fast growing area of growth for a lot of companies. And it's often part of the human resources department. It's often referred to as talent development, acquisition. You can look into if there's a company in your area that is big, that is growing, that may be interested. There could be a startup in your area that's interested in someone that's doing something like this. You may be able to start looking at cataloging the people that you have helped. And even if you haven't done it professionally, you may be able to keep a record of the people that you've helped and use that as a professional develop as a tool, as a supplement to your resume, as this is something I've really loved doing. From there, you can potentially set yourself a timeline. Talk to people who are in the industry, talk to people who are doing this full time, see what it might take. You may be able to take an online course to get certified to do this. I mean, you don't have to do it overnight, and you don't necessarily have to do it in a way that makes you uncomfortable. You could potentially get a certificate or expensive. You could potentially get a certificate online. It could be 30 days and then be able to get hired. So those are the kinds of things that I would look at. I would try to establish your credibility by doing it online, maybe establishing your methodology, and then look at ways to get credibility and then look to see who's hiring. So I would absolutely look at why you like it and how you've approached it so far. And I would also absolutely think about the fact that the most important question that you're going to answer in any job interview is why do you want this job? And for you to say, I didn't realize I wanted this job, but organically it sprung up. And I said, I realized that I love doing this. So I pursued a certificate. I pursued understanding what the jobs were. I pursued understanding how to get the jobs. And that's why I'm in front of you. And I would actually understand why I would actually encourage anybody on this thread not to think about what you can get as a job, but what it is you really want. And
Mm,
not only is that a key to career fulfillment in general, but that is a key to getting a job. Because again, the most important question that you will answer is why do you want this job? And you want to have an authentic answer because having been someone who's been on the other side of the table for 30 years, we can spot it. And really, the job almost always goes to the person that you want. And I see there's some comments which I'm really excited about. But let me just say that um, my experience in almost 30 years of hiring is that the way the process goes is we will have, bring in 6 candidates for a first round interview. We'll bring back 4 candidates for a second round interview. We'll bring in 2 candidates for a third round interview. And at the end of those interviews, I would bring in a team and say, okay, what do you think? Who should we hire? And the whole team would say, I don't know, they're kind of the same, but this person wants it the most. And the job always goes to the person who wants it the most. And if you can really make it clear from the beginning, I know this is what I've wanted, I know this is what I've meant to do, and you're going to get the job. And that's why it's kind of, I don't know, Elias may call it in alignment with the universe. I would call it in alignment with the universe. I wouldn't say that in my job, but
yes.
it, you really should go with what you want as opposed to what you think you should get. And that's why it's worth taking a little bit of time up front to really think about what is going to fulfill you and what it is that's going to make you happy and what you want. And with that, let's go to some of the comments, Elias.
Danielle says hello. Chris says hello. Dolores says, can we get training for the people who do the hiring? I feel like that's one problem area. Yeah.
So I'd like to. What do you mean by that exactly? I can. What I can tell you is that when you're on a lower level, when you're talking to somebody who's maybe a new assistant, maybe 2 or 3 years out of school, maybe new, they're going to give you a checkbox, and there's actually opportunities in here. They're going to give you a checkbox. They have a list of, does this person understand the job? Does this person show evidence of skills that they can do the job? Does this person well spoken? Does this person, interested in show evidence of understanding the company? The higher up you get in the organization, the greater the chances are that the person you're interviewing with is going to be handed your resume when they walk in the door and be like, okay, who am I talking to? Be like, okay, I got it, thanks. So that's actually good for you because you have an opportunity to kind of take control of the interview and say, here's why I want to work for you. Here's why I know I'm going to be good at it. What can I tell you about myself? So, one of the things I talk about in my book is here are the ways that you can answer the first question, prepare the first question, which you know is always going to be some version of tell me about yourself, walk me through your resume, what brings you in today? And you could take control of it and say, here's why I know I'm going to be great at this job. Here's why I want this job. What can I tell you about myself? And the higher up you go, and the less the people seem to know about why they're sitting there in front of you, the greater it is an opportunity for you to grab hold of the conversation and really run with it and run with what you're bringing to the table.
Smart. Joy says hello. Thanks, Carmen. Hello, Susan. Priscilla says, I graduate. Oh, come on. There we go.
Yes, Indeed is absolutely a good source. LinkedIn and Indeed are the two that I use the most. You can also just type into Google, I live in suburbs of Chicago. I want something nearby that does data analysis entry level, and they'll shoot you back a whole list with from all the job boards because there are some local job boards and specialty job boards, so you can try that too. But Indeed and LinkedIn are actually the best ones. Okay, how you can use your psych degree or if you should go another route. Um, It's up to so a psych degree. Probably your professors would tell you to go into something clinical or something academic. Your psych degree is highly applicable in anything related to, for example, marketing, where a marketing firm would want you to understand, would use leverage your skills to apply to, for example, a consumer product good, where you're going to be applying the skills that you've learned to selling certain products to certain demographics and leveraging key aspects of how do I catch the attention of 25 to 55 women to buy this all natural deodorant, and what can I learn about what social media skills they will use, and what social media channels they will use, and what the best way is to approach them, what message. Those are the kind of things that people will look for from someone with a sociology degree. So there are a lot of commercial ways to apply your psychological skills and the degree that you learned in a commercial market. They will be valued. I can also tell you the three things that are valued in any job, in for any industry, in any role, are being very detail oriented, being able to do well in a pressured environment, and being very well organized. If you have a good GPA, you can point to that. You can even point to that with something like waitress or waitering experience. There's nothing better than that to prove that you are detail oriented, can do well under pressure, and can be very well organized. And being in a high volume turnover restaurant environment, a lot of people don't realize that. If you have done that in your experience, if you've worked at the Gap and have customer service experience, you can also point to that. The key is to point out that you are detail oriented, well organized, and able to do well under pressure. Almost every job is going to ask that of you, and we all want to see that, every hiring manager.
Excellent. Dolores says the newest trend is remote working or hybrid, where you report 2 or 3 days from home and from home the rest of the time. What is the best way to request this type of assignment on a cover letter?
Do not. Do not request that on a cover letter. It should say it in the job description. If I don't recommend asking for any type of, I would consider that at this point, it's highly under, I mean, that was definitely a norm under COVID. It's very highly debated now. Right now, the trend is to ask people to come back into the office. Most positions will be posted as remote or partial remote, but say in the Chicago area. Uh, when you are going through the interview process, my recommendation is not to ask anything related to what is my career path, how quickly will I be promoted, how quickly will I get an advancement in my salary, when can I work from home. Those are all perks that you can negotiate at the time that you have the offer. My recommendation is to not discuss any of that. Only apply to jobs that suggest it can be a hybrid position.
Hmm.
At this point in time, I would only apply to those jobs. At this point in time, I would also recommend maybe offering to go full time until you are established enough. Honestly, I think it is good for you, for your career, to go in, establish relationships, and at least for a period of time to be in the office for 6 months to a year and then go on a hybrid basis. Many companies do not want you there, and
Mhm.
they will advertise the company at the position as hybrid. If it is not advertised as a hybrid position and you need a hybrid position, I would not apply to it.
Excellent. Thank you. Hi, Sarah. Hey, Rachel. Sarah West says, I'm in the career that I went to school for and I like the pay, but I don't feel like my work is doing anything meaningful or positive in the world.
So Sarah, I would say what you need to do is define for yourself what meaning or positive means for you. I think so. I get that and I understand that, and I'm sorry. And there's two options for you. One thing is to try to use your skills in the world in a way that does feel positive outside of the job. So, for example, was a consultant for many, many years to help businesses run better. And one of the things that I did was I worked for an MBA consulting nonprofit. So I went to work for Ronald McDonald House. So I did operations, and one of the things I did was help revamp the volunteer system and how they use their volunteers, how they order their food, how they generally ran the Ronald McDonald houses, which are houses for where they house for free families of children in cancer treatments at major cancer centers for pediatrics in cities. House the families that live very far away, but they don't have the money to stay in hotels when they bring their kids in for cancer treatment. So Ronald McDonald House asked a nonprofit group to help revamp their operations as they grew, which meant scheduling volunteers, scheduling food operations, etc. So I did that for about almost a year project, and it was really fulfilling. So I was able to use my skills. I kept my salary. I took on additional work outside of my regular salary job, and it was really worthwhile. I also did some smaller projects. That's one way to go. The other way to go, if you wanted to integrate it into your everyday life, is to think about really closely define what would be fulfilling for you. I think there's opportunities if you were to really closely define what you would give up in terms of what you want to achieve. And if you think about it as a 2x2 matrix, the financial that you were financial need, high low, and then fulfillment, high low, and you want to get into that sweet spot of having enough money to live, but also feeling really great about the work that you did. So, for example, becoming an executive director at a homeless shelter for children would be fantastic, but would it pay you enough? Mm-hmm. So you need to clearly define how much it is that you need to live. So if you're going to go from $150,000 to $75,000 as an executive director at that role, it's a no, but maybe you could go to $110,000 as the executive director of a group of homes that is or a fundraiser kind of role. So really closely define what would make you happy and how much you need to continue to live the kind of life that you would need to live and still be happy. So it's all kind of about the details and the planning if you want to make it your main focus, or there are ways to add that into your extracurricular focus, and those are your two options.
Excellent. Sarah says, Amy, I've been at my job 9 years looking elsewhere as I feel my company is a sinking ship. How do I best answer the question, why am I looking elsewhere?
Is that just for yourself, Sarah, or for anybody else?
Well, wait, I think it's for her.
Okay. So I don't know. If your company is still around in 9 years and it's still around, I do know the feeling of what it's like to be at the company as a whole is a sinking ship. I know that feeling. I worked in educational publishing, which has been in disarray for many, many years. And I was there at the time of the .com boom, and I felt like, everybody who's anybody is making a run to the .com boom and making a ton of money, and I continue to be in textbooks, which keeps going on just because nobody's built a killer replacement for it yet. And publishing continue. It's hard because instead of everybody working to make the pie bigger, people are, fighting over the size of the increasingly smaller pie. So I totally get where you are. Um, it's a really personal question for you. Are you staying there because it's comfortable and you're going to ride it out until it finally collapses on you and you are forced to ride it out? That sounds like not a great thing. But on the other hand, if it is comfortable and you are able to do it really well and have a good lifestyle outside of it, that's what I did for 9 years. I had a job that I could do well with colleagues that I liked. It allowed me to go home to a toddler every day at a normal hour, and I don't regret any of the time that I spent there. So I would really sit down and make a list for yourself of what is there something else I want to do? What is the value I'm getting out of staying? And what is the value? What are the downside of staying? I don't know how old you are. At the time, I was in my 40s, so I kind of felt like I had proven myself before I went there, and I would be able to prove myself when I left, and also be able to leave the industry. I think it depends if you are accomplishing something in that role that you can point to. If you are making an impact on revenue, if you are making an impact on cost reduction, if you are getting increasing accountability in terms of managing people, in terms of managing budgets, in terms of introducing a new product to the market, you're accomplishing something that you can take with you anywhere. If you sometimes you may feel stagnant and you're not really stagnant. Um, think about what it is that you're really going to be able to show if you were to bring your resume somewhere else, and if you're building on that resume. Those are the really key things you need to think about to go somewhere else. And think about what value you're getting as a whole rather than just as a career, especially as a woman, Sarah. And I don't know if you have a family, but if you feel like there are benefits outside of work to staying, be sure to consider the whole picture, and what may be happening in your personal life as well before you make a decision. And if you're getting the Sunday scaries and you need to make a plan for leaving, give yourself enough time. Give yourself 3 to 6 months to think about what it is you really want and how you can get it.
Good. Priscilla wanted to know, how long do you think a resume should be?
One page, unless you've been there somewhere for 10 years.
Wow.
And have a lot of accomplishments. No. People will throw it away before they even look at it. It has to be no more than 2 pages. Nope.
Okay. There you go, Andrea. 1 page, sister.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Hi, Diane. Lori says, how do you keep from being depressed when you have your heart set in a job and it doesn't work out? Or you go on 20 job interviews with no offer?
Know that you're not alone. It really is hard. I can tell you, you maybe are fishing in the wrong pond. I can tell you that are you tech? I don't know if you're a tech person. A lot of the tech people or the marketing people right now have had layoffs. So if you think about the layoffs that have happened in the last year, a lot of them have been with talent recruitment, talent acquisition, recruiting. The people who have been laid off have been the people who were hired on to bring in lots of staff and help with growth, and they've been the ones who've been let off. So even if they're hiring some people, there aren't enough people in HR to respond to the resumes. That's the first thing. Second thing is, if you think about what's going on business-wise, A lot of people have cut their advertising and marketing budgets. So if you are applying to an industry that's driven by advertising or marketing, like a lot of the software companies that provide platforms that get their revenue from advertising, you are probably they're not bringing on people. So many times, if you don't hear from someone, I promise you, it has nothing to do with you. I have been the head of company, in charge of all hiring for all companies. I've been the COO of a company. If the CEO of a company, part of their job is to make sure they attract the strongest candidates. If they could reach out and personally thank every single person who applies to any job in the company, they would. The fact that you do not hear from anyone is totally a breakdown between the overall human resources department and the people who run the resumes. They are totally overworked. A resume can get printed out and dropped behind a desk. A resume, you can put in a resume that has your last name, the file's named as your last name and the last date that you updated it, and then it's somebody goes to look for it and they're like, uh, how do I find that person who had that good background? I always have some people put in their resume with their last name and the job they're applying for. I cannot tell you how many times I've had more than one job requisition open and I've lost a resume because I couldn't find it. I couldn't remember the last name of the person and they didn't have the requisition. I didn't know, I knew the job that they're applying for, but it wasn't in the file name. There's so many dumb reasons why you don't hear back from someone. If you are applying, there are a lot of reasons that are totally not personal. There may be the fact that if you were in the interview, they can cancel the job position. They will not tell you. They will tell you they hired someone else, even if they could have cut the budget for the role. They could have just found someone who is better qualified. So what? They're better qualified. You're going to find a position where you're the most qualified. You have to keep going. It is a numbers game. Even when you are the last candidate and they tell you wink, wink, nod, nod, you're going to get the job, keep applying. You have nothing until you have a written offer. It really is not it really sucks. I'm really sorry. It is totally a numbers game. You probably have to apply to 60 jobs. You probably have to go on 15 interviews. You probably have to be in a lot of processes. It's kind of like dating. I mean, think how many dates you've been on that thought you were going well and you would get ghosted for no reason. I mean, you're a wonderful person. You're going to make somebody really happy. It has nothing to do with you. You can't change. It's a lot about numbers. It's a lot about stupid stuff. Somebody may look at somebody may, you could go into an interview and be the best person for the job and you like remind somebody of their mom and you're like, I don't want to work with this person. I swear there's the dumbest stuff that happens. Please, if I could write a book that was 50 pages of don't take it personally, it has nothing to do with you, and it would sell, I would write that book. I mean, it really is difficult, but things can change in an instant. I have so many clients that I've worked with for 6 to 8 months, and they're like, almost every client I work with will cry at some point. And then all of a sudden, it's like you're at camp and it's been raining for 2 weeks, and the sun, and you're like totally miserable. You're like, Mom, please come pick me up. And then all of a sudden, the sun comes out, and you're like, oh, okay, this wasn't that bad. So please do not take it personally. Please keep going. Please keep applying. It is a numbers game. My heart is with you. It's hard, but it gets better. And keep going.
So Laura wants to know, do large companies still use headhunters for corporate jobs? If yes, how does one find a good headhunter? Do you as a job seeker pay the hunter?
No, you never pay the job hunter. There's two kinds of headhunters. One is called a retained headhunter, and the company pays them regardless of whether or not they of who they fill the job with. So if I'm Russell Reynolds, which is one of the biggest headhunting firms in the world, and I'm Exxon, I'll say I'm going to pay you $300,000 to find me a new chief of operations in Abu Dhabi, and it's my job to bring Exxon resumes for everybody who would be a good person in Abu Dhabi. The Exxon corporate will not talk to anybody to be head of operations in Abu Dhabi unless they come from Russell Reynolds. That's a retained headhunter. The other kind of headhunter is, and most people are like this, are transactional headhunters, and they're commissioned headhunters, and there are some that are really good because most of the business has moved away from retainer, and there are some that are really slimy. You have to be careful. So someone will call the minute that you go into a company from a headhunter, you're immediately more expensive. So if a headhunter calls you and says, "I want to put you into this company," you immediately go into the company with a stamp with the headhunter's name on it, and you're 15% more expensive because the company isn't just paying your salary. They're paying your salary plus a 15% commission, which is the first 3 months of your salary to the headhunter. So you have to be very careful because the slimy headhunters on this side will just send in as many resumes as they can. They'll just put in a keyword like entry level marketing manager and say and call you and say, "Can I send in your resume?" And they'll send in 100 resumes with their stamp on it. And then if you want to apply to a job at that company, they'll say, "Oh, no, 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 no. It could be 6 months later. We sent your resume in first. We get the money for it." So you have to be careful. And I don't recommend putting your resume up on places like Indeed because that's what can happen. It's definitely just apply to jobs from places like Indeed or Monster. Don't necessarily give your resume to a headhunter. The other headhunter, if you do get contacted by a headhunter, these are the questions that you want to ask. How many people have you placed with this organization? What kind of relationship do you have with the hiring manager? And how well do you know this company? So if there are a lot of good headhunters on the other end of the spectrum who know the company well, have a relationship, have placed a lot of other people, if they say, "Look, I know the hiring manager. I know they would like you based on your resume. I've placed other people like you in roles like this," then that's probably going to be okay. But there are a lot of people out there who will just troll for resumes. And if they do not already have a relationship with the company, do not allow them to send in your resume. Just one other point about recruiters. A lot of recruiters will only be interested in you if you are a square peg that fits into a square hole. So if you are a data analyst that does data mining for consumer product goods, grocery products in dairy, they will only look at you if you are a data analyst that does data mining in dairy. So, for example, I do a lot of work with this in the corporate offices for a CFO. They look for CFO for a merchandising company who wants to be a CFO in a merchandising company. I will work with somebody who's kind of a CFO combination COO in a merchandising and retail company who wants to find something else. And if they don't fit into that square peg, they'll come to me instead of a headhunter because they don't just, they're a square, they're sort of an oval peg for an oval hole. And a headhunter won't help them, but I will help them fit themselves into, something that's not quite square and round. So there are a lot of good executive recruiting firms. They specify by industry, they specify by position, but you have to fit right into exactly what they want.
Great question. Thank you, Sarah. Ba, 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 ba. Where
Yes,
did
I see somebody, but don't,
I meant
people
Delora,
only care
sorry.
on your resume how far, about 10 years, how far back you should go. After that, nobody really cares. So put
That was
much less on your resume about that.
Delora. This is Sarah. Sorry.
Okay.
So Sarah was telling you earlier, she's a purchasing clerk for an automotive supplier. You give me lots to think about. I'm also in my 40s, but just earned my BA in business management. She's the one that the
Oh,
um,
that's great. Yeah. So you should definitely go to your bit to your school and ask for your alumni database, password and username. Go to Handshake, see what you can use. Definitely use your supplier, your vendor network, your vendor skills, your purchasing skills, and talk about the size of the budget that you work with, how much money you save the company. Put as much quantitative information in there as possible, and develop a new resume and say you have your BA now as well as all this many years of experience, and lean into your alumni network and see what comes up on Handshake. I'm sure that if they use Handshake or some other version of it, and you should be able to find new roles.
did you answer this one about 10 years ago? Yeah.
10 years is how far back you should go on your resume. After that, you could maybe summarize what you've done and what you've achieved.
Jamie says, there's Jamie. We were talking about you earlier, Jamie.
Amy?
I've had 12 roles in 18 years, the same company. Is it okay to summarize or combine responsibilities for some roles?
Yeah, I would put a summary sentence at the top, something that says, 18 years in roles of increasing accountability for profit and loss statements, or management accountability leading up to current role managing, you know, 18 people or whatever it is. Again, using as many numbers as possible in terms of budget or people. You don't have to be exact, just order of magnitude. Managing 20 people is different than managing 200. Managing a budget of 5,000 is different than managing a budget of 50,000 or 500,000. Just something around there, and then you can break out. I would or more than 10 years back, I would say early career starting in this department leading to, and just focus on the accomplishments and what you're really proud of or what you achieve, the achievements, summarizing the achievements for the first 8 years.
Serena says, I've noticed some job descriptions still referencing C19.
I
Is
don't
that
know what
something?
C19 is.
I don't know what C19 is either. Danielle says, I've worked for the same company, same job for 12 years. I should probably put more.
No, you can blow that out. You just want to say that you've had a steadily increasing role in that company, in terms of more accountability. You don't necessarily have to have an increase in title, but if you've been given more responsibility for more tasks, etc., that's a really good thing to show.
C19, COVID-19 vaccination.
Oh, um, yeah, I think people are. I mean, most people will say that that's a requirement. So I think most people assume that you've gotten it. It depends on what industry you work in, I guess. If it says COVID-19 vaccination required, maybe you should put it in.
But what if I haven't?
That's probably an issue. Unless they say it isn't, it's probably best to not ask. Probably not best to say anything.
Um, yeah, I got it. Thank you. Thank you, Priscilla. Got it. Um,
Yeah, we
let's
should have realized that.
whoops. This retreat has just this last retreat. I'm like, click. Carmen, what has been the best answer you've heard for what is your weakness? Good one, Carmen.
I'm glad you asked. I have the answer for that. So here's the deal on that question. We don't really care what your weakness is. We ask that question because we want to know that you can learn. So The reason for that question is not to find out what your weakness is. The reason for that question is to know that when we, as we inevitably will, as in your manager, will say at some point, you know, I know that you do it. You worked on this math. You developed this algorithm.
Barking on the truth.
My
Yes.
my weakness. Um, you worked on this algorithm, or you wrote out this purchasing agreement, or you did this social media press link. We don't do it that way, so I'm going to ask you to do it this way. And we don't want to hire somebody who's going to be like, what? No, I do it this way, so I'm not going to change. We don't want anybody who's going to be defensive. We want somebody who's going to be able to learn and grow with us. So when we say, what's your greatest weakness, we want you to say, well, here's the most basic example. I am always running late, but I've learned to set my watch 10 minutes in advance. So when I work with a client, I always go over this question, and I always say, what is your greatest weakness? And usually people will say, like, I'm kind of disorganized, I always run late. They'll tell me what their greatest weakness is. I always say, okay, that's great, let's use that. But let's also add something about how you've learned to cope with it. So if someone says, I can be kind of disorganized, I'll say, well, I've learned that I'm kind of disorganized, so I've learned to add extra time to my day to organize everything that I have, and I have extra organizational tools, or I bought the software program to help me organize. You can say, I get frustrated, or I've learned it's really hard to ask for help. So if I work on a problem that I'm stuck on, if 30 minutes, I'll set my watch. If 30 minutes go by, I'll ask for help. If your workness is perfectionism, I think that's kind of like the same thing as if I've worked too long on something, I'll say, is it good enough? And I let it go. So, whatever it is, pick a remedy for it and say that you're doing it. And by the way, try to practice it. So that's what we're trying to figure out is, are you going to be defensive about your weakness, or are you going to learn from it? And we want somebody who's going to be able to learn from a weakness, not defend it. So what we don't want is somebody who's going to be like, yeah, I'm kind of, I like to listen to music a lot when I'm working, and that's just me. Or, yeah, I really love, I often spend, it usually takes me twice the time I need to work on a project because I have to double check every answer. Yeah, that's not going to fly. So just think about, what your honest answer would be, and then think of a correction. And that's what we want to know, is that you understand when you have a weakness and you can correct it.
For young people coming up, what jobs would you say they should try to get these days?
A job that they want. That's really the basis of everything. Again, going back to, the most important question they're going to answer is, what is it that why do you want this job? There's a lot of really growing fields. So the most growing field right now is healthcare. There's so many aspects of healthcare. I don't mean be a nurse. I don't mean be a doctor. I mean, there are all sorts of records management. There's all sorts of database management. There's all sorts of information technology. There's all sorts of software as a service. There's all sorts of working with patients, patient care. There's so many aspects of healthcare. But if there's anything that's of interest to you, that's a great one. Green technology, anything related to environment, is really growing. And then financial technology. AI obviously is exploding. There's a ton of those three fields are growing, but there's a lot of aspects. I mean, you can do customer service in healthcare. You can do enterprise software in any of those fields. You can, if there's something there's a real issue with what jobs there are. And I have a chapter on that on my book, is to try to figure out what jobs there are. And a lot of that is just talking to people and finding out what it is that they do. I call it soft networking, and also just kind of doing research about what jobs there are. And what jobs, what live jobs there are. You can do a lot of research online and how to tell from a job description what you would actually do in a job. But it's actually it's so hard to figure out what jobs there actually are because nobody ever talks about what jobs there are when you're not in an actual job. So I think that's kind of the first step is to figure out what kind of jobs there are and also think about what gives you satisfaction. I think when you're just starting out, the best way to think about it is for somebody starting out is what kind of if you have a day when you wake up in the morning and you think, oh, I'm excited today. Today, from based on what I'm going to do today, it's going to be a really good day. And what kind of day is that? Is that a kind of day when you're, working with a group to solve a problem for school? Is that a kind of day when you're, working at your desk in a computer situation to work through with Excel spreadsheets? Is that a day when you're engaged in something that has nothing to do with school, and what is it exactly? And just breaking it down into a series of tasks. What gives you a lot of satisfaction at the end of the day? Like, that was a good day. I'm excited to go, exercise now or have a beer now or whatever it is. I feel good about myself. And what are those things? And then try to figure out what kind of jobs you do those things in.
Susan says, love all this information. Thank you so much, Amy. This is super helpful.
Good. I'm so glad. It's fun for me.
A day
I
when no one breaks.
sick about me talking about this stuff, so I'm glad you guys like it.
No, it's really good. Thank you so much. Thank you. The hour goes like this, everybody. I'm telling you, it goes
It
like
does.
so. Please, guys, College to Career Explained. You can get it on Amazon. You can find it also on Amy's website. Um, Great book. Please follow Amy on Instagram. It's really important to follow her on the social medias because, as you know, we're getting out there. We're getting out there. It's really important to like, follow, share. Thank you, Michelle. And yeah, um, uh, Jamie, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, real quick, what's coming up is next week is I'm looking, it's January 5th. We have Lisa Noland. We're going into the topic of honor for July. And Lisa Noland is honoring your intuition through surviving cancer. She's going to talk about how I know it's like how she was able to trust her intuition while she was working through her cancer diagnoses or cancer treatment. So it's going to be a big one. Thank you. And thank you, Priscilla. I meant July 5th, whatever I said. Yes, July 5th. July 5th is what I meant. And then, yes, we have deepening your psychic senses. If you did growing your psychic senses, you want to deepen your psychic senses, come to that. Now, starting July 6th, we have Get Your Groove Back. It's 4 weeks of finding your soul contract, looking at your fears, looking at the chaotic noise and how to stop that. And also, most importantly, it's about understanding you, how you can understand all the pieces of you to get you back to where you need to be. Okay. And there you go. It's only 15 people, eliminates 15 people. And then on July 7th, we have Who Likes Jewelry? Who likes, I gotta grab it here. Who likes something like this? Rachel Elizabeth makes these beautiful designs and they're beautiful. So they're beautiful, they're designing, they're lovely. Tree of Life. She's also gonna sell her um cabochons. I almost said her Cabernet, but she's selling her cabochons.
I'll buy those.
Yes. And she'll be that. And then we've got Soul Chat on July 8th. So the fun doesn't end, guys. TikTok tomorrow, 7:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and that is for guided meditation and a little bit of a group read. So again, so great to hear from you, Amy. Thank you, thank you.
Thank
Um,
you. This was so fun for me.
and We'll talk to you guys soon. Remember, we are here to connect. And when we connect, we educate. And when we educate, we grow. There's unity in community. From our hearts to yours, thanks, everybody. Have a good night